I'm going to hand over to chair this session to Farid Boz, who is a very good friend to One Law for All, as well as being the head of the Iranian Secular Society and the chair of the Council of Ex-Muslims in Britain. Thanks, Farid Boz.
Thank you, Anne-Marie. We have this session but there's a discussion on religion and secularism. Are they independent, compatible, or contradictory? Last week, when Mariam asked me to chair this session, I was thinking sort of, how do I approach this issue? And Nick Clegg came to my help. He went to Luton on 3rd of March. He had a speech on multiculturalism, and he said that the purpose of his speech was clearly to separate the violent extremists in Britain from non-violent extremists, and gave the grant to the non-violent extremists to say, actually, Islam is compatible with democracy, human rights, women's rights, you name it, everything. And I thought that's actually excellent start for today's debate. The question of secularism and its relation with religion is quite a live issue. It affects people's life every day. It affects women's lives every day. It affects the life of children every day. It affects practically affects every aspect of the society. It's not an academic debate. It's a live issue. Today we have a great set of speakers on a panel that they are shining lights, really. When I was looking at the biographies, but I think when you actually look at the biographies, it doesn't, give enough to the realities of who these people are. We have here, I'll start from here, we have Ahlam Akram who was born in Palestine, Nablus, the occupied territory. She lives in Kensington still, or in London, for many years, but she's been an outspoken sort of person for women's rights in Palestine. Her whole life history, when you look at her life, is a struggle all the time for equality. And she's a spokesperson, she's an organizer of the Israeli and Palestinian peace groups, and she's a member of Women Against Fundamentalism. You have sort of a brief biography of Ahlam here, but she's one of the shining lights, and we're very pleased to have her here. We have also Philip and Nadia sitting together over there. They're doing a double act today. I'm sure Philip could explain this, but Philip teaches in German in Brussels, but he's a rationalist and a secularist. He's a co-founder of Alliance of European Republican Movement, and an active member of Belgian Secularist Association. And also, as I said, Philip is doing a double act with Nadia Geert, who's a philosopher by training, and she is she's actually involved in many organizations, namely Action Network for Promotion of Secular State in Belgium, in Brussels. She's written a number of books. One of them is Damned Way. And I think I was going to ask her, she's got another book, Secularism for 21st Century. Is that been translated in English? I'm sure there will be a lot of interested people. And I saw that this book, which was published in 2009. We have also Mariam Namazi, the co-founder of the One Law for All and Council of Ex-Muslim, and many other activities. I know Mariam for a long time, and a history of working with refugees in North Africa and with United Nations, and then she set up an organization for Iranian refugees and established 100 branches in different parts of the world, and created a huge movement in defense of actually refugees Iranian refugees internationally. She's a writer, commentator, and she's an old-fashioned social activist, something which has actually gone out of fads, really. It's not fad anymore to be a social activist, or a really traditional, good social activist that you'll have, that they would shake the ground for you. And also we have, on the panel we have Julie Bindel, who is, I need to go back to her. She's a campaigner against violence against women and children. She's been doing this for about 30 years. She's actually, her focus is on sex industry and the industry behind this. You have Julie sitting over there. And also, last but not least, we have Annie Gourrier. Is that the right? Sourier, sorry, but my French pronunciation is not very good. And really what we have here, we have a great many people who are actually shining light in women's movement. Annie is a nuclear physicist by profession, but she's been she's set up she's been in women's movement for a long time. She's set up a women's shelter, and she's been honored for that. She's written a number of books, a Black Book of Status of Women, and Under the Heather Scarf. It's to name one or two of her books that she's written. Anyhow, we have a great sort of panel here. I was going to actually ask, I thought it's best if we ask Nadia to start, because Nadia is going to read her statement, and I think that the Abel Act, I don't know how you want to explain that, Philip. Do you want to start actually explain your Abel Act, and then Nadia will start? This is interesting.
All right. Can you hear me like this? Yes. Okay. First things first, maybe let me explain briefly what RAPPEL is, the organization we both come from. It stands for Réseau d'Action pour la Promotion d'un État laïque, which means an action network for promoting the secular state in Belgium. And of course it also exists in Dutch language for the Flemish-speaking part of the country, because as you know we have to have everything double there. And the RAPPEL is also participating in the European initiative that was mentioned before by Mr. Pollack. Nadia will give you a sketch of the Belgian situation, and some things that she's going to say might strike you as odd, or you might find it odd that we find it necessary to react against those things. But I'll be glad to answer your questions about that afterwards. And which is also the reason why I'm here, because Nadia considers herself not very fluent in English, and she asks for your indulgence for that. So I'll do the part of the interaction with the audience afterwards.
Thank you, Philippe. First, I would like to apologize for my bad English. I shall try to explain how Belgium organizes relation between state and religion, and why we ask for a real separation between state and religion. Historically, Belgium is a Catholic country, in the sense that most of the population were Catholics. There were also some Jewish and Protestant people, so Belgium recognized three religions after its creation in 1830. But when I say recognized, I mean also that Belgium subsidized three religious communities. And what about today? Today, Belgium recognized and subsidized 8 religious communities: the Catholic, Protestant, Jewish, Anglican, Islamic, Orthodox, the Buddhist community, and the so-called non-confessional secularists. All these persuasions are taught in state-run schools over the whole curriculum, 12 years, in separate classes, 2 hours a week. That means that Catholic pupils are together to learn the foundations of Catholicism, and the same goes for Muslims, Jews, etc. We created the RAPPEL in 2007 because we wanted and still want our state to be secular. That means totally free from religious influence in accordance with the US constitutional principle that no religion can be established which guarantees freedom of conscience for all. This implies that no religious or non-confessional community be financed by the state. Like the 1905 French law on the separation of the church and state, the Republic neither recognizes nor salaries nor subsidizes any religion. Why might a state recognize one or more religions? If it does, it necessarily favors one or more religions and disfavors all others. Moreover, it considers that citizens are not only citizens, but also members of a religious community, and in so doing, it weakens the civic community. The danger is that the law ceases to be the same for all citizens and becomes different depending on a person's creed. In Belgium, we are already confronted with many examples of such a tendency. Teachers must be neutral, not show their preference for a political or religious system unless they teach religion. Animals must be stunned before being slaughtered, unless there are religious reasons to refuse this. A very old rule says that people cannot walk around the street with a mask, except during carnival time. But a few weeks ago, a court decided that it was disproportionate to forbid a woman to walk around the street with a full Islamic veil. A few years ago, a member of parliament was expelled from the assembly room, because he was wearing a t-shirt and a cap reading "Another world is possible." It was considered a wrong dress in such a place. A few years later, the Brussels Parliament welcomed the very first member of the parliament in Europe who wore an Islamic veil. Many, especially left-wing people, consider this a progress. But would they rejoice in the same way if a soutane-wearing priest were to be elected? More and more, the idea that religious obligations and prohibitions are more respectable than personal choices gains terrain, and many intellectuals and politicians declare their interest in introducing reasonable accommodations in Belgian law. A few months ago, a commission of experts presented a report about interculturality in Belgium. In its very first lines, it stated that democratic principles such as equality between all citizens, equality between men and women, and the struggle against racism are not absolute values, and must be balanced against other principles. The rest of the text confirms the will of the authors. Under the pretext of fighting racism and discriminations, they suggest to introduce quotas of people from minorities in the working world, to allow public officials to wear religious signs unless they work for the army, the police, or the justice, to allow pupils to wear religious signs in the last years of secondary education, to consider introducing reasonable accommodations in Belgian law, to change the calendar of public holidays to allow workers to choose 2 days off according to their religious convictions. All these examples show that Belgium hesitates to introduce the principle of secularism in her constitution and seems to favor communitarianism.